The wave of change is upon us. It's happening.
It's a whole new world. And no, we're not talking about Aladdin here.
This is so exciting.
But how are you going to show up?
There is no self to be. There's just be yourself.
Best-selling author and spiritual mentor, Sonia Choquette is back on Intentional Living to shed light on the changes we're all experiencing.
We're starting to have a new sense of who we are and recognize that we are the creators of our reality.
Teach us how to honor our spirit.
Yeah, the ego's scared, but your spirit is not. And you learn to separate the two.
And most of all, enjoy the ride of our life, even if we don't have a magic carpet.
It's not big deals. It's these little deals like you've shared that make a big difference. The ego wants the big deal. The spirit sees that everything is a big deal.
On an all-new Intentional Living with Courtney Meyers. Welcome to Intentional Living with Courtney Meyers, a podcast dedicated to those seeking a more fulfilled and purposeful life through thought-provoking conversation, spiritual exploration, and authentic connections. The intentional movement has begun, and if you found yourself here, you are a part of it. Intentional Living with Courtney Meyers starts now. Hi, Sonia. Welcome back to Intentional Living with Courtney Meyers. I could not think of a better person to talk to today because this is our 100th episode. And this podcast would not exist without you, your encouragement, your idea, your support, you being one of our very first guests in general. So I am so happy we get to talk today.
Well, it's my pleasure. And I'm just so happy that you followed that guidance that was offered and that you're serving such an important role in society right now because our planet is in the midst of a tremendous transformational change. And your weekly messages, your podcast helps people find new guidelines, a new paradigm, a new way of living. And we need those role models and we need those guidelines because we are out in the forest. We are in a scenario that we have no precedence for. So you're helping light the way.
Thank you. Well, with you holding my hand along the way, I mean, what are we lighting the way towards? I mean, like we have no precedence. Like, have we not really experienced what's going on right now? Like as we
Not at all. What's going on is that our planet reached a tipping point of no return in the negative. But when we kept living as though we were not divine beings, that we were not beings with multi-dimensional senses, that this left brain, external five sensory paradigm, at its root it creates a false picture. It creates a false experience. It sets up the idea that we are disconnected and that those around us are potentially our enemies. So we started treating the other people and the planet or anything different from ourselves as the enemy and as a threat. Hence, we destroyed the planet. We got to the tipping point of destroying one another. And with COVID and with all the tumultuous things that have followed, our inner senses that have been present in all of us that had been dormant are coming back online. We are beginning to feel and experience directly, en masse, telepathy. We're starting to feel what's called clairsentience or sensing energy, not just thoughts and thinking about things. We're starting to have a new sense of who we are and recognize that we are the creators of our reality. These are new experiences, but our training and our conditioning have given us no tools on how to use those. So portals like yours, conversations about intentional living, give people instruction and baby steps that help us learn. It's like if you got a brand new bicycle and you're told you can ride this, but how? Nobody's ever shown me a bicycle before. And I want to do it, but I have no role models. So these conversations are helping people recognize it's not just me that's changing. I'm not weird. I'm not isolated. And this new way of being is rewarding. It brings relief from fear, which has dominated my experience perhaps up until now.
Yeah. I mean, that is exactly what happens. It releases that fear. I mean, when I came to you, how fearful was I? I mean, I was living in a state of constant fear. And what's funny is even, through all of our work together, and even, we haven't spoken in a couple months, in our mentorship, and I've continued to have these conversations. So I feel like I'm constantly getting coached, and I know we still talk, but I feel like I'm constantly getting coached by all these different people. I've had so many epiphanies that I haven't even been able to tell you about yet. It's just like these things that are coming through. And as we open ourselves up to it, it's like coming in fast and furious. And it's like, we know this, but when I came to you, I was so fearful. Now, I know you talk a lot about like walking in the fire and like living in this, constant state of just like being and the flow and our intuition. I'm still in that fire. Like, I'm not out of it.
Well, here's the thing, Courtney.
I'm not scared.
We're all in it. We won't. And the fire is the invitation to take charge of your life instead of being compliant with externalized authority figures. There's an invitation to say, I am the master and creator of my experience, and I will be fully responsible for the discovery process of that. So we are invited to overcome giving our power away. And the illusion that if we follow the instructions of others, and especially authority figures, that will guarantee our safety and security. Now, to be fair, there is a moment in time where that's appropriate, when you're an infant, when you're a child, even when you're an adolescent, where we can learn by those who've gone before us. But at some point, we have to move out of that adolescent state and start to recognize that following what other people tell us is of value or dictate the way we should be isn't going to give us a sense of fulfillment and meaning. It throws us out of integrity with ourselves. But there is a learning curve. How do I actually start living in integrity with myself, which that word means in wholeness, in congruency. And it is truly a trial by fire experience. We have to make choices where we're 100% responsible, have the result, learn from it, and make another choice if the result isn't what we want. But the reason it's so fast is because we need to start becoming the captains of our own ship and then recognize, but we're all in the same ship. So if we each start showing up 100%, we help others also do the same, to step in and become more self-aware, more conscious, more responsible. And the best of all is less fearful, more confident, more creative, more engaged in life is a good thing, and more loving.
Yeah. I mean, literally, that I think is one of the biggest things is, stepping into that fire, stepping into that fear, taking that responsibility, yet the fear subsides. It doesn't mean things are easy. Like you said, you're taking responsibility. You're in it. Like, I'm in it. We're all like, once you go down this path, you're in it and you can't get out. Like, you have to keep moving. Yet that is, I think, one of the biggest things, even probably in the last 6 months, that I've really felt is like this, like, release of fear, this release of like surrendering more. Things happen. I still have my moments, but it's like, no, everything's going to be okay. Like, it really, truly is. And it all does kind of fall together, and we don't always see it in the moment. And I think even I'm thinking about it now, like, I feel like I always come to you, okay, when am I going to be out of the fire? When is this going to be over? And it's kind of coming in right now. It's not.
Ever.
It's not.
You learn to enjoy it. You learn to enjoy it. What I want people to learn, and what I've observed with you, and I'll even ask you, you're such a poster child for evolution for people, because what I love about you, and I love about mentoring you and observing your growth, is that you're definitely an example of fear. Feel the fear and do it anyway. And you didn't let fear stop you. And yes, there were moments where you were absolutely terrified, but you stayed true to yourself. And I believe this is where you are of tremendous value to people, because they'll trust you in that, in what you're saying, because you've shared your own process of having to evolve into a more confident, creative being, living the life you want, and not waiting for the security blanket or the guarantee or the approval of others, and still living with your fear, but not letting it drive your choices. It was a constant companion for a while, but it wasn't the force that made your choices or put you in a place to give up your power or live small. And for that, you are someone people can trust, because the truth is, growing into your power is a test. It does require a certain conviction of spirit to override the fears of the mind and the feedback of the world. And it subsides over time. But there's a saying, I think it's Nietzsche who said, what doesn't kill you makes you stronger. I certainly think that you can say that's been the case. Certainly in my life, it's not been a cakewalk, but I've always said I'd rather be fearfully authentic than to capitulate and give my power away and live a life that isn't really a reflection of who I am.
Yeah. Yeah. There's so much of that going on though in this world. Like, thank you for saying that, because I've really been feeling that a lot. I speak to a lot of experts on the show. We get a constant barrage of like advice and opinions, and this is what you do. And there's a lot of gods and gurus out there, and finding that discernment to listen to yourself is really hard, especially with all the noise. And I find even now, we can take in all this information. It's like, I almost feel like sometimes I'm drinking out of a fire hose. And the other night I lied down to go to sleep, and Matt, my husband, was just so annoyed with me because he was not following a sleep state. And you know how you just get those hits like right in that moment.
Right.
And it came in. Yeah. Those downloads, and something came in, and I just like had to share it. I like shake him awake. And then of course he's up for like hours on end, cause I'm like chattering. And then I just fall right to sleep, and he's like sitting up going like, what the hell just happened? But I had this download, we're getting all this information, and I'm trying to sift through it. It's just like, I'm hungry for it. You know me, I'm hungry for more and more and more. I just want to learn, what's my next step? How do I move? How do I progress? Yet I had this moment of clarity. I'm not a message. I don't have to like wrap myself up in this idea of what the world thinks I need to be, or how I need to show up on this podcast or online or in this place. Like, and it was this huge thing. I'm not a message. I'm a messenger. And that's what I realized is like, through all of this work, I'm coming back to who I truly am. I'm coming back to myself. I've always been a channel. I've always been a person that was connected to spirit. I don't think I just realized it because it's so natural to me that I don't realize that I'm channeling in the moment. And so once that happened, I was like,
can take a breath.
Yeah.
And this actually is your message, that we are all capable of being directly plugged in to the force of spirit within us. We all share a connection to the spirit. It expresses through each of us in our own unique way. And there is no self to be. There's just be yourself. There's just be yourself. And we've not had that message in our culture, in our ideology, in our religions, in our philosophies. We've had the message that we need to be shaped into something other than our raw material. And what's happening now in the world at lightning speed is, when A, that was a bad idea, and look at the consequences, and B, and I think the bigger message is that who you are naturally can be trusted. Who you are naturally, if you really align and take responsibility for yourself and reflect and get in touch with the heart of you instead of the fear of you, and make choices from the heart of you, you become part of the healing of this planet. Who you are naturally designed to be is beautiful. And the other point about that is our culture says that you have to be something, and our ego says it better be big and it better, quote unquote, help the world, save the world, change the world. And it's like, not at all. Just help yourself. Help your own world. Live in your own world with peace and harmony with your people, your family, your children. And it resonates out vibrationally. It's not about, thank God you're not the one saving the world. We'd all be in trouble. I tell myself that every day. But if I live in peace and harmony and I live authentically, and I'm not in a kumbaya moment, believe me, I'm an intense, reactive, spontaneous, very intentional person, and I can collide a lot with anything that doesn't resonate with me. But I'm enjoying it. I'm not making it a battle for my life. I am making it a theater for my creation. So I recommend that we reframe the intensity as enjoyment, as excitement, as passion, as adventure, instead of, oh my God, I'm afraid, I'm in danger. Because as you know, for all the fears you went through, none of them happened. You think about it. None of the things you were terrified about happened. Did they?
Yeah. No, you may have hard moments, but like, I've actually read someone did a post the other day. I saw it on social media and I was laughing because it's so true. She was talking about how she would write all her fears and anxieties in her journal. And she went back to a journal from maybe like 6 months ago. It wasn't even like that long. It wasn't like years ago. She went back to it 6 years ago, and she didn't name whatever this anxiety or fear she had was in the journal. And she went back to it. She couldn't even remember what she was talking about.
Right.
Like,
well, and this is
so
another point.
Important.
Well, here's another point. We are sentient beings, and there is a generic fear on the planet that we channel. If we're not intentional, if we're not connected to what's important to us and committed to what our inner self is guiding us to do, not for money, not for a job, not for purpose, but for my own authenticity. And that in and of itself is valuable. If I am guided to do artwork, not because other people have to buy it, but because it is the voice of my soul. If I'm guided to sing. If I'm guided to be a messenger and do a podcast, it's because that fulfills some part of me that wants to contribute who I am, and not for the job or the purpose or the public image. Like it for its own sake. And the rest takes care of itself. Now you can't just sit back and do nothing. You have to commit to who you are, and however that looks. And it is a learning curve. Our minds want to figure it all out, so we're not uncomfortable. Whenever I teach a class, the first thing I say is, unless we're uncomfortable, we're not learning. So I'm here to make you as miserable as I can so that you have that much potential to grow. And if we can just recognize, if you breathe into discomfort, it becomes adventure. And yeah, the ego's scared, but your spirit is not. And you learn to separate the two.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's interesting. It's really interesting when you can start to separate that ego and the anxiety and like where it's really coming from. I mean, it's a game changer because we are, I don't understand why. And I know you're trying to change that, but like, as children, it's like we fall into that ego trap so easily. It's like we're just trained into that because it's just like that's the way it's been. But, that I think is one of my biggest purposes here is to not do that for my children. And that makes parenting a lot harder too.
Yeah. Well, here's the thing. I've raised my children to be intentional, and they're two now incredibly brilliant adult young women. They're not even that young. But what I can say is that part of the conversations like this one that we are having affirm to those who are now the parents of the young children coming on is changing. The messages are changing. It is no longer the majority message to say, just be quiet, follow, do what you're told. That message is crumbling apart. The new information, you are a co-creator, you are a divine being, live from your heart, follow your spirit, be aware of your impact on the world, think of your choices. They have power. That message is starting to march in pretty strongly. So it's hopeful. Your generation, the generations coming to being are changing the tipping point back to the light. It is happening. The world's mainstream media don't emphasize that, but the experiences in the world that people are actually having are. For example, I'll just give you one I had. We hear be afraid of crowds and watch people have guns and watch your back and blah, blah, blah. But I just went to Jazz Fest in New Orleans a week ago. I was in a crowd of over 55,000 people outdoors, and we watched the Rolling Stones, and 55,000 people, from babies to people in walkers, were all together singing, laughing, dancing. There was no yelling. There was no drunks. There was no fighting. There was no obnoxiousness. They flowed in and they flowed out with this high vibration. And it was it was as much a powerful experience as seeing the music. It was the vibration of a huge mass of people in their hearts. And I believe there's more of that happening than we are being told. I think it's actually creeping in to become the majority.
Yeah, it really is. And like you're saying, even with the children, it's like, that is where we become the game changers in the world. That's how we change the world, as we do it with our children. Like you and I, we're like not going to just individually change the world. We can raise our vibe. We can have these conversations. We can hold the space for everyone to join us. Yet where we really affect it are, Harper and Hayden or Sufi,
right.
Yeah, we're going to change it here. I mean, I've even seen it like for the same thing. Over the weekend, my daughter had her dance recital, and it was, this event, and it was so happy. And, at the end we bring out, flowers, and she just lit up on stage. She loved it. But her little best friend got flowers too. But Harper had these like little mini bouquets that were so cute and so sweet. And her friend had these big bouquets. And I thought, oh no, Harper's going to be upset that she doesn't have a big bouquet. We only gave her these little ones. And we're walking, and all of a sudden her friend is like throwing this tantrum because she wants the little flowers like Harper. And just letting the kids be their kids. I'm doing my own thing. We're walking back to our car with our friends. And all of a sudden she lets go of my hand and my mother-in-law's hand. And she looks at us. She's like, I'll be right back. We didn't have anything to do with this. She turns, goes to her friend, gives her a hug, and gives her flowers. Says, I don't want you to be upset. Be happy. And I was just like, wow, this is how the world changed. I was like my friend's mom or the mom looked at me and was like, did you do that? I was like, I had nothing to do with this. That was one of the most proud moments as a parent I could ever have. And that's what gives me hope for the change, is moments like that when we foster that with our children.
That's such a beautiful story. And it's such an affirmation that we are naturally good. We are naturally loving. And if we are given the mirroring back and the affirmation of that, then we live that experience. We express that through ourselves. And we understand that there's enough to share. Yeah. There's enough to give away. And if we give away, we are empowered instead of deprived. So, and I do want to keep emphasizing the changes we all want are happening now. That we always want to learn more and grow more because it's fun, it's empowering, it's exciting. The sky's the limit. Choose your own adventure. Right. But we don't have to postpone this sense that I am a peaceful and grounded in alignment and in the flow human right now. Even though my outer circumstances may not be in a settled state, I can feel that I'm in a settled state and that whatever I want to create next is part of my purpose in life, just to create my own happiness, not to change and make other people happy, just create my own happiness. That is the purpose that we have. And it's not big deals. It's these little deals like you've shared that make a big difference. It's that. So let's just, the ego wants the big deal. The spirit sees that everything is a big deal.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, we can't change anyone. Like, the reality is, we're kidding ourselves if we're thinking we're going to go out there and change others. Like, we have to do it for ourselves. We have to want it for ourselves, any sort of change. So then if we can just raise our vibration and be in that constant state, I mean, I feel it all the time. You go out and there's, you'll feel the angst, and it's just kind of like, take that breath. You don't have to join. And when you can be in that space, all of a sudden people come to meet you.
And I say we don't change others, but we can influence them. And we influence people all the time, as we are influenced by the dominant vibration. You walk into a room where a fight just occurred or an argument, but everybody's not acknowledging it, you're still going to feel that agitation. But by the same token, if you walk into the room with your heart open and your spirit engaged, and your vision is to see the spirit and witness and support the spirit in others, and not look at the surface dramas and agitations, people do rise to meet you there. It's one of the reasons why I greet people with not "how are you," but "how's your spirit today?" Because I immediately am speaking to their authentic self. I had a woman write me the other day, and she said, "I heard you suggest that, and I did it in the elevator, and this man looked at me and where I lived, and he looked at me and rolled his eyes and was confused, and it was very awkward." And I wrote her back and I said, "But he thought about it all day." So in that awkward moment is a dance in the fire moment, but the effect will last. So fast forward, 4 weeks later, she wrote me again and she said, "Guess who asked me how my spirit was today in the elevator?" It comes back. So we don't change others, but we can influence them and we do influence one another with our vibration, with our intention. And are we coming from fear and withholding? Or are we coming with love and generosity? And we can have an instant feedback on how those two affect others.
So do you find when you ask someone how their spirit is today versus how you are, they answer you differently?
Absolutely. Often they look confused because they haven't considered it, maybe ever. Secondly, they look for, well, what's the right answer? Because our automatic self is trained, fine, how are you? So they have to be present to consider the answer. And then some will say, "Well, thanks for asking. I'm actually all good." And some will say, "I don't know." And I'll say, "Well, probably because your spirit left the room. Need to call it back." And I'm not looking for anything. I'm not looking for any kind of a response. I'm actually giving an acknowledgement to who they are. And that is my joy. How's your spirit today? The other thing I might say is I see the spirit in your eyes today. You look so beautiful. I see the spirit in your smile. You look so beautiful. And actually, if someone's got no light in their eyes, no energy in their face, their spirit has left the premises. And you can bring it back by saying, "Wow, you have such a beautiful spirit." Even if it's in Timbuktu right now, it snaps back. And they have an instant transformation. You'll see it before your eyes. Try it. Try it.
Yeah, like I want to try it, because even when I'm thinking about it, if you were to ask me how my spirit was today, I don't know that I would be able to distinguish between how am I feeling and how my spirit is. I feel like it would just be one.
Courtney, I don't think that you would go into your head about it necessarily.
No.
I think that you would, and even that is an ego examination. The spirit in you is the breath in you, the life force in you. That is what gives you life. So how is the life force in you today? And it's just a learning curve. We're just learning it's the habit of who am I checking with? Am I checking in with my fears, or am I checking in with my empowered essence, my light force? Doesn't mean the spirit's always the happy camper, but the spirit is the life force of power and creativity. So my spirit is determined today. My spirit is in a growth cycle. My spirit is having an adventure. My spirit needs time out. I need to be alone. I need to be alone today. I'm saturated. I'm flooded. All of that is very authentic and real, instead of I'm fine, how are you? Which is like pulling a string and a puppet talking.
So wait, I'm curious. When was the last time, do you think, as humanity, we all lived from our spirit?
Well, there are parts of the world that never stopped. I mean, you go to the Maoris, or you go to the Aboriginals, or you go to the rainforest, they're fully living their spirit and never thought much about the physical world being anything but an expression of their spirit. Collectively, science, with I think it was in Descartes, and when science overrode religion, and all of a sudden we're in our heads. And I'd say probably in the 1500s, 1600s, we got a new paradigm, which is like, don't listen to your spirit. You listen to your intellect, and you listen to your reason, and everything needs to be rationalized. And we all marched down that road for a while, and look where it got us. You know, we've had great inventions. We've had great breakthroughs in technology. We've learned to build societies and communities, but we got isolated from one another. So we took it too far, and we got to go back and bring on those inner senses back online, and the awareness of our connection, because that other consciousness is all separating, disconnecting. So we're just kind of in a rectification mode where, let's not make it all bad. There's many good things, just you and I talking here on this technology invention, which is sort of miraculous, but it's not my computer talking to your computer. It's your essence talking to me through this portal. So we have to be whole brained, and we have to be appreciative of the things that the logic brain can create, but know the limitations. And then we bring the inner senses back online, our intuition, our inner guidance. And here's what's fun about this. For my whole life, because I've been teaching a long time, I was dismissed as woo-woo and weirdo, and that's not real. But now science has decided it is real, but they have different words for it. Introception, proprioception. It's like my inner self is picking things up. It's like, okay, those are fancy pants words for, my gut feeling, my heart, my spidey sense, but they are no longer being discounted. So anybody who still discounts that is in the dark ages, you're in the last century. Even science is now integrating that we have more than 5 senses. And we have the ability to energetically communicate. And so this is so exciting. I listen to scientists talking about, we have interception, introception, proprioception, acousticception. And I thought, oh, come on. just, I have a gut feeling. My heart knows, my inner voice. That's layman's terms for these inner senses. But they are being integrated. And there won't be any more. If anyone calls you a woo-woo and a weirdo now, it's like, well, you're kind of behind the times. We've discovered more, and we need to use it.
Well, even like I know you teach and you speak all the time about like leading from your heart, like dropping into your heart and living from your heart. I read a story the other day on social media about this little girl who had a heart transplant. And unfortunately, the transplant came from someone who had a tragedy in her life. And the little girl woke up and she was having all of these dreams and reliving all of this stuff that happened to the girl who lost her heart and she got it. And then they brought in the police and literally word for word, she was recounting exactly what the horrible person had done to the little girl who had passed. And then unfortunately, this is a dark story, but not. Unfortunately, the man who had murdered the little girl came in and said, that's exactly what happened. And this is exactly what I said, word for word, which as horrible as that story is, and I don't know why I'm telling such a tragic story yet, but like, it just shows you that the heart is our mind. It's a conscious organ. Like, it gave me this whole new meaning of what living from the heart or leading from the heart means. You know, science is literally proving our gut and our heart have these memories, have these emotions, have these, like, we don't have to only live from here. Like,
well, and
it exists
also,
here.
Scientifically, the left brain, when we say live from here, we're speaking primarily of the left brain. And the left brain bandwidth is limited. It's a separating bandwidth. It doesn't make the leap of connections that even the right brain makes. And the heart brain the heart has been dismissed as a sentimental, weak, self-indulgent perception. That if I'm my heart, oh, you're just being emotional. It has been dismissed. Whereas the heart is the great it's the perceiver of the connection of all of us. It is the perceiver of the subtle, how we can be connected, that little girl, to the experience of the other soul that was in that body, to somebody having an experience across the ocean, to someone inventing a solution and creating some new invention for solving global problems with energy. We're bouncing all over. So what we're learning is we have localized bodies, but we do not have localized consciousness. Our consciousness is expansive, and we are not limited to just where we are physically in terms of our awareness, our perception, and our ability to communicate with one another. So all of this in 5 years, Courtney, will be starting to be taught in school, I'm sure.
Really? You think we'll be teaching it in school?
I believe it because one of the primary conversations that I have in my world with change makers is the recognition that our education system needs to change.
Yes.
And it is changing. There are new schools and new curriculums and new formats and ways of being that are very different. For example, my granddaughter is going to forestry school at 3 years old. In the fall, she's going to take forestry and environmental living as a 3-year-old. So schools are changing. I was visiting a school in Barcelona, and they had a thing on the board with these little sticks on it, but you could pick. It said frustrated, anxious, happy, joyful, and you pick your emotion and you put it on the board. And so everybody can acknowledge these are for the kindergartners, what my feeling is and how to communicate it and how to be understood. These were not my Catholic school upbringing, I'll tell you that. And it certainly wasn't very much of a public school upbringing for many people I know. So the education is changing. The perceptions are changing. The values are changing. Our recognition, because one of the things is, what does your inner self say? Was one of the questions on the board for the 3-year-old. So I was beyond excited for this.
I love that because, I'm struggling. My kids, Harper's, going into pre-K next year and Hayden, or in the summer, and Hayden's about to start preschool. And I love their school. They're learning things, they're learning about God and I'm great for that, but I'm struggling with the idea of what comes after. I never thought I would be this person that didn't just follow the rules, go into the school system. This is what you do. But I'm like, I could feel my spirit like raging back against this. It's like, I don't know. And I'm in a fabulous school district, like one of the top in the US, like a great public school district. But I don't know that that's the right thing. And I'm really struggling.
Well, here's what I would say. And I think this is an important part of the equation for all of us. It's good, but incomplete. It's not complete. We need to add. I always taught my kids what was never taught in school, as I was taught by my mom. Trust your vibes, honor your inner self, listen to your spirit, work with love over fear, take responsibility for yourself. You are an empowered creator. I learned this at the dinner table. I didn't learn it in school. I learned it at home. We had daily conversations around dinner, like what was your best creation today? That was our conversation. Where was your spirit challenge today? Was when I got a little older. We would talk about that with my mom, and my dad not so much, but he held the space for it. But my mom would ask us, partly because she was so young when she had us. She was 15 when she started having kids, so she was still a kid. So it was more of a peer conversation in a lot of ways. But you can do that at home as a parent. Don't expect the authorities out the door to educate your children across the board. They can educate your children in how to navigate the external world, but I think it's parents' opportunity to bring online and witness and celebrate the inner self of our children. I just feel like a little goes a long way. How's your spirit today? One of the things my mom would say to us going to school, and I remember this in first grade, every day she would say, expect good things. And every day when we came home, she'd say, I expect to hear about them when you come home. And it set my consciousness toward life is going to be good to me. And it has been. I expect and have my whole life good things. I expect it. And like a magnet. So that even that little statement to your kids will set them in a whole different world than, oh my God, be careful out there. It's dangerous. It's bad people. No, expect good things. It doesn't mean be naive. It doesn't mean be checked out. I've had a lot of people challenge me on that, but no, I'm very checked out, because the other thing she said is pay attention to what you feel and honor it. Don't wait for someone to tell you it's okay. So these are the messages as a parent you give your child, but they won't believe you unless you live it yourself.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, that makes me feel a little bit better, because you know me, I'm not a homeschool teacher. I don't have the patience to homeschool my kids. It's just not me. It's not in my makeup. But if we just bring these messages into our home, they'll still learn it, because I'm really struggling with how this goes. Yeah. I'm really struggling with
about what you
putting them in that structure.
School. Exactly. What you learned at home was your school of life, and what you set the tone for your children based on these evolutionary values and the fact that we grow, hopefully, and we learn and we do things a little bit better than those before us. I mean, I look at my children and they're in their 30s, and I think you are doing so much better as people and parents than I did when I was your age. So home is the child's primary school. And it's not by sitting there telling them what to do. It's by example and tone and values and what you emphasize as important as a family.
Yeah.
You're
I love that.
Great.
Well, I literally had that thank you. No, I literally had that conversation with someone earlier this week. It was just kind of like, it all has to start at home. It really starts with the mother. I mean, it really does. I mean, you can have two father. I'm not saying your family dynamics are wrong. I'm just saying it just starts with that mothering force in the home.
The children come from your body. They stay very connected to you for a long time. And I've done a lot of research on people who are intuitive versus people who are struggling more and stuck in their heads. And intuitive people had intuitive mothers, and mothers who emphasized and supported intuition. They come online more easily. They integrate their inner guidance more easily. They're more comfortable with it. If your mother was not intuitive, it doesn't mean you can't be. It means you have to override this initial imprint that said, don't listen to yourself. Not so much by what that mother said, but by what the mother did. So, but fortunately, the wave of change is upon us. It's happening. And in 5 years, I predict that this will be mainstream school conversation. I do.
I love it. I love it. And literally, if we just continue to have these conversations, you're talking about even coming from the intuitive mother, the children come online. Like, doesn't matter how recognizing your mother is of their intuition. Like, I know my mom is extremely intuitive. We don't have these conversations very much, but she's very, very intuitive. And even just recently, they sold one of their houses and bought another house. And she was stressing about it the whole time. And I kept saying, once you sell this house, because they had been looking before they sold. I said, once you do this, you're going to open up the space for the new. The perfect house is going to come in. Like, I literally guided her through that. And she said to me a couple days, like right after they got their new house, like, you were right. So it's like,
Yes.
My intuition was there. It's always been there. And just kind of reminding her that hers is there too.
Forth.
Yeah.
Right. We are interconnected. We are intergenerationally connected. As we heal, our parents can heal, and our children will reflect. So there's no demarcation. It all flows both ways. So that's why my motto is keep it simple. Trust your vibe.
Yes.
And you don't need to explain it to anybody. You just need to stand by. I take responsibility for that choice. It's really that simple.
It really is. I love it. I love it. Well, thank you so much, Sonia. How do we follow along? I know you're on social media. Do you have any new courses coming out? How do we stay in touch?
Actually, do stay in touch. I would encourage people to follow me because I'm putting constant messages out daily on Instagram. And YouTube is a good one as well. My YouTube channel is a lot of really empowering education. And if you don't have the book, Trust Your Vibes, get the book, Trust Your Vibes. It is the manual of how to trust yourself and do it in a way that's a pleasure, enjoyable, and relieves you of fear and brings back the fun factor.
I'll add in there, Ask Your Guides too. That one has literally, if you're like going into this, that book is so much support, because if you want the support, you know it's there. And I've listened to on audio. I love the audio version of it because your voice takes it to another level. But I've listened to it. I've read it multiple times. And to me, it's just kind of like, I go back to what I learned in that book so often, because it just is like a support, just to know you're supported.
You're never alone. Trust Your Vibes is you have the internal wiring to live an authentic, empowered, successful life, and Ask Your Guides is the message. And by the way, you're never alone. You have a huge divine support system, joyfully ready to help you, and it's simply a matter of allowing that to happen.
Yeah. That's what gives me so much peace. I mean, I have your support, but I also have the support of others. So
absolutely, horizontally and vertically.
Yeah. Well, Sonia, thank you so much. I'm so glad we got to do this again today. And you got to be my 100th guest. Oh my goodness.
I'm honored. I am so honored. And what a beautiful creation that you have manifested for all of us to be so beautifully supported. And we learned so many exciting new things. So I just want to say thank you for the gift of your service and creativity to all of us.
Thank you. Can't wait to talk soon.
All my love.
And that's it for today's Intentional Living with Courtney Meyers. Thank you so much for joining us. And thank you, Sonia Choquette, for being my 100th guest on the show. I love sharing my conversations with her, with you. This podcast would not be what it is without her constant support, love, and encouragement. If you want to connect with Sonia, I'll put all the information in the show notes below. And as always, you can find Intentional Living with Courtney Meyers and Intentional Media on our website at CourtneyMyers.com. That's where you'll find our books, our courses, and everything else we have going on. I'll talk to you soon. Bye.